So thanks for attending today. I'm Mike Cloutier. I am the kind of the moderator or session support for this session today, which is going to be on Youth Exchange team. Thanks for attending today, and I want to introduce you to your trainer. The trainer today is Michelle Jack. She is the club coordinator for the Youth Exchange Committee for all of the Canadian clubs.
Morning, my name's Michelle Jack. I've been involved in Rotary Youth Exchange for the past 21 years. I started as a host family, then very soon, became a YEO. I was on the District Youth Exchange Committee a few years ago, about 12 years ago, and I'm back on. This time I am a club coordinator, and I liaison between the clubs and the district committee. Currently, I am the Youth Exchange Officer for the Rotary Club of Qualicum Beach in Canada. I have an inbound student. Her name is Carolina Castillo, and she is from Chile, and she is still with us. It's been quite an interesting year to be an exchange student. And as most of us, I've done some Zooming, but I haven't done the screen sharing and going between web pages, and so I hope that you're all patient with me. I also have a couple of co-hosts, I like to call them today. I have Mike Cloutier, who just was our moderator, and I have Jane New. So I'm going to start with Mike, and Mike, just introduce yourself a bit, please.
So I am the incoming Youth Exchange Chair for the district, so I'll be the Youth Exchange Chair on July 1st. I'm working with the group of future outbound students that we've got right now. Later on in the presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about what the outbound program looks like for this coming year. Been involved in Youth Exchange for over 20 years now, both Rotary Youth Exchange programs and other programs. I'm the Vice Chair of Western State Student Exchange, and I'm also a board member for the North American Youth Exchange Network.
Thank you. And I also have here today, I have Jane New. And Jane has been actively involved in Rotary Youth Exchange since 2001. She became a YEO in 2005, joined the committee in 2007. She's left the committee, but I just heard a few minutes ago that Jane is coming back as our web manager. Jane, you want to say good morning?
Good morning, everyone.
And I might be throwing back to Jane questions if I get a little over my head with some of this stuff. And Jason, I might even ask you to weigh in once in a while. Just so you know, this course is not a substitute for reading the District 5020 Youth Exchange Officer Manual, which I'll show you today. And you should know that the committee has worked very hard, and it is now half the size it used to be. So I think that's terrific. This 2 hours that we're here today is also not a substitute for the 5 hours of District 5020 Youth Exchange team training or the 2-hour District 5020 YEA training course, which are both required to be completed by clubs who wish to participate on the Youth Exchange. Today, for the first hour, I'm going to talk about Youth Exchange as a team. I'm going to talk about screening and vetting, how that goes. I'm going to spend a fair amount of time showing you our website because that is one of the most valuable spots for information. I'm going to talk about a typical Youth Exchange year. I'm going to drop into the role of the Club Youth Exchange Officer, the role of the counselor, and that'll be it for our first hour. For our last hour, which will be, we will discuss the budget, we'll discuss student recruitment, the budget, why we love it, and then I will have Mike talk about the COVID-19 and what, the impact that's had. And it has had a large impact, and it continues to have a large impact in our program. And Mike will address that at the end of our second hour. So why do you want a team? Why do you want a Rotary Exchange team? My mom always said many hands made light work. And it's more than that. If you have a team, you have more Rotarians to connect to your student. And everyone brings something to the table, and the kids all connect to someone different. So the more Rotarians you have, the richer experience your student might have. At a minimum, you need a club YEO, an inbound counselor, an outbound counselor. Those can be the same if the inbound and outbound students identify as the same gender. So your required members are your youth exchange officer and your inbound counselor and outbound counselor, but you can make up a team. For youth exchange team, you can, there's a plethora of people you can have, but a transportation person. So this person might be someone who arranges to have your student go to the meetings or any other activity. You might have someone that looks after your recruitment team. You might have an interview team chair. You might have a social director, especially at the beginning when you're the first couple of months that your student is in your town. They can be lonely, they don't have friends, and they need to be socially directed. A youth protection officer. That person doesn't necessarily have to be a member of the committee, but it does make it easier if the youth protection officer is on your team. Your YEA administrator, which is the Youth Exchange Administrative Hub, where we keep all our information, and we'll talk more about that later. That person is usually the Youth Protection Officer. It's great to have someone who looks after the host families. And if you're a club that is doing a lot of different youth exchange activities and Rotary youth programs, youth services chair would be a good person to have. Now everyone on your team needs to be screened and vetted through YEA. And that we've got a new acronym, and I didn't mention that. There's a lot of acronyms, and I apologize, and I will try not to use acronyms that without explaining them. But this one is the AIRCON acronym, and we'll talk about that here. The acronym is Application, Interview, References, Criminal Background Check, Online Youth Protection Training, National Sex Offender Registry Check. And aside here, I dreamt about AIRCON last night. So when you're going to do your screening and vetting, if we click on this link, and all going well, I get the website up, you're directed to the AIRCON. And this is on the district web page, not on the Youth Exchange page. And the first thing that you'll do as a new volunteer is you'll click Application, and you can begin a new volunteer application. We click on that, and that gets us to, that will get you sent a link by our youth protection people. Application. Then we go to the interview, which is part of the application process. Your references. This is important. You need 3 references, part of the online application form. Let your people, whoever you choose for your references, let them know this is coming. They will get an email. It's very quick, a little survey. They send it back, it's done. And only one can be a current Rotarian. Criminal record check works a little different in both, same process, but a bit different process in both countries. You're in Canada, you have to make sure you get a vulnerable sector criminal record check. In the US, the compliance officer sends a link from IntelliCorp. You do need the online youth protection awareness course, and you will be sent a link for that too. I believe, Mike, that both Canada and US get checked through the National Sex Offender Registry.
That's correct.
And then US only is the Department of State Local Coordinator Training. So that will happen as soon as you hit the application button. Sorry if I'm scrolling this. There is quite a bit of other required training, and these are assigned in the Youth Exchange Administrative Hub by the club coordinator, which is me, we're currently, actually, there's a plug, we're currently looking for an American club coordinator, and the club YEO. For the YEO, you need your counselor training, you need the host family orientation course, US or non-US, you need your culture shock and reverse culture shock, and I find that one of the most interesting courses we have. The student overview and the YEA training. And for counselor, there's some overlap here you'll see, the counselor training, the culture shock and reverse culture shock, and the student overview. The Youth Protection Officer, the YPO, that training is provided and monitored by the Youth Protection Officer. So this looks like a lot of training, and in fact, it is a lot of training. But that's what makes the Rotary Youth Exchange so successful. That's what makes people trust it and respect it. That we are the gold star of student exchange, and other groups look to us. And it's because of this training, and it's because of our attention to detail. So I'm going to move along to the Youth Exchange website. The website was developed, helped created by Jane. So Jane, if there's anything that I missed or you think I should point out, let me know. And we're really, like I said earlier, super excited to have Jane back on the committee and as the web manager.
Pause just for a second, Michelle.
Sure.
Tom asked a question about who is the new Youth Protection Officer. As of July 1st, the District Youth Protection Officer will be Becky Fontaine from the Tacoma 8 Club.
So here's our website. So I'm going to click on the link here. Hope it all works. Hope I can get back. Maybe I'll get rid of that aircon. And here's the web page. Great pictures of, I believe this is this year's crew. Oh, no, there's Michael, my student from last year. That's last year's crew. So I'm just going to show you the front page, and then I'm going to walk through a bit of it. We do have our COVID-19 updates on here, and we have our past updates, so you can look at those. And as we all know, we're living this. It changes daily and hourly, so we're trying very hard to keep up to it. As a youth exchange officer, you can look down and see what's coming up. And here we are today. There's some training, apparently. Here we are. And then the next training is our online youth exchange team training, which is the required training. And that is on the registration's by June 11th, and you'll see the training here. And we still have our rebound weekend on the books. It might look a little different, might be virtual, but that's when we have our kids that have come back from this year get together and work on their reverse culture shock. You'll see if there's any fees due, it'll be here. If a student is coming in, there's applications open. You can see the arrival orientation. And again, this is all, pre-COVID, but everything is here that you need to know for youth exchange. So if we go up here and we look at about, this button has your about Rotary Youth Exchange. So if you're someone brand new, in you go, talks about youth exchange, some stories, how to apply, and there's quite a few spots that show you how to apply. So I'm just going to do a couple other ones. This is a page that you will refer to, I'm sure. This is our Youth Exchange Committee page, and we all have our emails here and our job description. So if you need to talk to your student's country officer, you can see, oh, my student's from Belgium. Okay, great. I need to talk to Seth. And then there's Seth's email. If you need the treasurer or whatever you need, the club coordinator, that's me, there I am. And there's our American club coordinator. It's all there. So we go back up. Then there's a direct link right to the homepage. And I want to show you that just because there's a whole, under Rotarians, all the youth protection information is listed there. So all the courses, everything else is linked there in case you're not on our website. Rotary International and Wessex, which Mike touched on. The Rotary Youth Exchange button. So I'm a student coming on. If someone has voiced interest, you can, as a YEO or a Rotary Club member, you can say, hey, go check out our webpage. And if you're looking at long-term exchange, we'll click here. Talks about it again and talks about some costs, travel, the timeline, the age requirements, which has changed a little bit. The year you leave on exchange, you must be at least 16 by September 30th, and you cannot turn 18 before September 30th of your year coming back. Down you go, and then if you're interested, click this button. Apply now. Oh, that's brand new. I see it's been updated. So right now, we're not, because of COVID-19, we're not taking applications. Well, there you
Well,
go.
it's more than COVID-19. It's just we already have a crop of future outbounds right now. We will be taking applications for the 21 year, but applications for this year are already closed.
Right. Alrighty. And then the short-term program, which we have, that we've stopped for this year, we have postponed it for this year. That's a great program for students that a year away from home seems a bit daunting. This is a summer exchange, usually between families. The students will go live 1 month in one country, and then they'll come back together and live another month in the other country. And that one is a bit more affordable for families, but they still get to learn another culture. They get to dabble in a language. They get to live in someone else's home. It's a great program for if you don't think someone is ready for a long-term exchange. Again, how to apply, events, what's going on. That's more for Rotary, for youth exchange officers, when the meetings are, where the committee meetings are. Stories, we try to update frequently different stories about students that are on exchange or they've come back. This is our student button. With the inbound, it's everything about an inbound, makes sense, right? Their arrival, orientation, all the different trips we have them together, the COMAX rendezvous, the district conference, the summer trip, the California trip, and health insurance. So as an inbound student, they can refer to this. Outbound students, once they're registered, they can find out when the district level interviews are, their orientation, their health insurance, some photos. I think we're tending to use more of the Google Drive for the photos now. There's not as many updated photos there. And then the host family. Host family, that's, besides the student, host family is one of the most important pieces of our program. And if you are thinking about becoming a host family, you can click this button. And everything you've ever wanted to know is right here. And if you want to apply, we click here, and let's see what this one does. So you can begin a new host family application, and that will go to the district. It will go to the district, and they will send you back an email and get you going with that. The Rotarian page with the youth exchange officer. Now this particular button is the one I use the most. This is the typical youth exchange year. So as a YEO, we have many, many jobs, and they're all listed kind of casually here by month. So if it's November, I can look at, I try to refer to this monthly, and I look at November, it's like, right, it is Christmas coming up, and my student is in France. I better get that card out. It's March. Okay, we've got to think about the orientation coming up. So this is just a great handy referral guide to everything you need to know in a casual form. There's also the link to the training that you will need, and talks about bringing your team, which we talked earlier, to get as many people in your club as you can interested and get them to have the training. And it just helps them understand the program better. So as you know, we're not doing the in-person training this year due to COVID, but we will be doing our online training. And that, as I said earlier, will be in mid-June with registration we'd like by June 11th. There's youth protection information. There's the volunteer applications we already clicked on. There's the host family, the vetting and the best practices, the district committee resources, and then my other personal favorite button is the YEA database. And YEA, I'm going to click on this, and this is where we keep all our information. This is where you'll find everything about your student when they're traveling, information, emails get sent, and there is a course going on about that today, so I'm not going to get too in depth with that. And then I'm going to click the program link and form button. And this truly has everything you need to know. I'm not going to go through everything, and you're probably very grateful for that. But I am going to show you the Youth Exchange Officer's Manual. And again, thank you, Mike and Natalie. I think that was the two of you that made this from 140 pages. It's only 44 pages now, Mike. Wow, that's terrific. So,
Down to 44.
wow. And everything they need is in here?
Everything they need is in there.
And look at this. There's a fun page. All the acronyms and abbreviations. There should be a test on that. So if you go to your, you know how to use this. I want to know about web resources, page 17, and away you go. That is something, it's kind of like, I don't know, my husband makes me read the car owner manual of our car whenever we get a new car. And that's kind of like this, this manual. You're becoming a YEO, you're getting a student, you need to read the manual. And now at 44 pages, it's quite doable. And this is a prettier graphic of that typical youth exchange.
Can we make it a little
year.
bit bigger?
So runs through January with planning at the club level, February, the Comox rendezvous, March, the orientation, April, planning information sessions to reach out to schools, May, your future inbound paperwork. Usually you have to go to the schools, you have to get the things, host families in place, the district conference in June, more information to attract future outbounds. You're at the school, the summer trip, July, saying goodbye and your rebounds coming home. August, you're welcoming those new exchange students. September, they're off to CBEC for their inbound orientation. You're getting them settled into school. October, you're starting with your future outbounds with student club applications and club interviews. November, you're going to your, the applications are due at the district, and Jason and some Rotarians like to take the kids to Disneyland. That's why that's those things there. And December, it's your outbound interviews in Victoria.
So there is a question, Michelle.
Yeah.
The question was, does our login information for the District 5020 website work for the RYE 5020 website or for the YEA website? And the answer is no, it does not. There is no way we can integrate logon between those systems. So the logon information for District 5020 is unique to District 5020. For the YEA system that Michelle has been talking about, you have to be appropriately screened and vetted. Once you're screened, vetted, and trained, you'll be provided with a logon to the YEA website where you'll have access to information about the youth exchange program for your club. So students, volunteers, host families at the club level.
So now you are the youth exchange officer of your club. Basically, you're in charge of the program, and there's some basic responsibilities, but I like to think of it as you are there to make sure that student has the best year of their life. That's how I take it. I want them to be happy. I want the club to be happy. And I tell my kids when they get here that I will do my best to make them happy and make their team and make the club happy with them, and they'll have an amazing year. If they just please follow those 4D rules, and we'll all be happy. So they need to make, you as the youth exchange officer, make sure all your team members are screened and vetted and trained. Your team members can't be host family, and they also can't be in a chain of command. So they can't be your host dad can't be the school principal or your child's biology or your student's biology teacher. That's just not fair to the student, and it just doesn't work. And it's a rule. Can't do it. We need to select suitable host families. We need to ensure that each inbound and outbound student, both long-term and short-term, have a counselor. We need to help with the school arrangements for inbound students. This also can be done by the counselor. We need to obtain club and school signatures on the guarantee form. We need to evaluate the students' immunization needs with school or health department. That generally is done when they are becoming applicants. We need to arrange for them to go to the school and have a look around and get an orientation. That's really great to use a rebound student or a club member with a student that's already going to that school. The school needs the student's application form. We need to let the school know how long they're going to be there. We need to let the school know all the contact information, the counselors, etc. We need to meet with the student and the school to get the student in their classes, and just let them know if there will be credits that apply or not, if they can graduate, what school events are going on.
Can I interrupt for 1 second?
Sure, love you.
So Jane brought up a good point. People who are youth exchange team members at the club level can be host families. They just cannot be the club youth exchange officer, and they cannot be the student's inbound or outbound counselor. So as a team member at the club level, you can host the youth exchange student as long as you're not the club YEO or the student's counselor.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for making that clearer. You need to have their emergency fund in a secure place and their passport. That depends on the student, and you can usually tell when you have that first meeting with your student and you go through all their information and you can see how organized they are. If you've got one that's not organized, you might want to hold their passport for them. They don't want to lose that. Opening a bank account with the student. In Canada, I don't know about the States, but that takes about an hour or 2 hours and you need an appointment. Make sure the club is doing what the club has committed to do with the monthly allowance and they get it in a timely manner. Really important that the student comes to the Rotary Club meetings regularly. Don't forget to talk to your program coordinator and get the presentation on the books for at the club meeting. Get them involved. Get them involved with any club service, for social activities. Get them involved with club members. And make sure that the club communications include your student and maybe even feature your student. Transportation to Rotary events. When the student is getting ready to leave, give them an opportunity to speak to your club, have a party, get those emergency funds to the student. I tell them that they need to put a reminder in their phone. I put a reminder in my phone because you do not want to try and get that money to a foreign country after the student has gone.
One other point that was brought up, Jen was saying, I thought it was illegal to hold the passport by US rules. It is true, it is illegal for us to take the passport from the students. You can't take the passport, but if the student asks you to hold the passport for them, then you can hold it for them. So that's what she meant by holding their documents in a secure place. Sometimes the students like their counselors or their host families to hold those documents because they're kids and they lose stuff.
Yeah. Generally, they're pretty organized and they come with folders and they look after that themselves. And they are, back and forth a few times in the year over the border with their different youth exchange group activities. Don't forget to close that bank account. That's a real hassle if you don't, because the student needs to do that. And then you on YEA, you need to notify the home country district when they go home. And you also do that on YEA. Basically, like I said, you are responsible for the general welfare of the inbound student. You want them happy. You want the school happy. You want communicate with the natural parents is quite nice. I talk with mine, once a month or so and just let them know how much we love their daughter and give them some kind of fun antidote or send a picture because the kids aren't always great about sending pictures. And I know they do appreciate that.
Another question came up.
Sure.
The question is, can a student get a club runner account with your club?
Oh.
That's pretty much up to the club. If you're a club secretary, they can set them up as a special member in the club and get access to Club Runner if your club wants to do that. Um, it's very much a unique thing to each club as to whether or not they want to make the students that involved in club activities.
And just a little wrap up here of the required training. So there is the District Youth Exchange Team Training course, which is 5 hours. There is the District Youth Exchange Administrative Hub Training, and that'll be the 4-hour course that is in June. And there's the Youth Protection Awareness course, the Local Coordinator Training, the Counselor Training, the Host Family Orientation, the Culture Shock and Reverse Culture Shock, and the Student Overview. Now, a lot of people have been volunteering for a long time, and they don't have all these courses. As of July 1st, we're going to require that everyone get up to speed and get these courses. Again, I know I can't see your faces, but there might be shock out there. It is long, but you can do it from your home. You can take your time doing it. And if you have been doing it a long time, you can just skip on down to the quiz. And if you take the quiz and you pass it, I think it's 80%, Mike, is that right?
It's 80%.
If you get 80%, you know the stuff. And we know you know the stuff, but we would really, we were asking that everyone have all this training. And then we know that everyone is speaking the same language. And it's much better for the kids. Do you want to jump in on that, Mike? I can hear you.
Yeah, so every course listed here can be done online, with the exception of the Youth Exchange Team Training course. That one is being done via Zoom meeting. As Michelle pointed out, we have registration forms available. You can go online and register for the 2 sessions. There are 2 2-hour sessions that you need to go through for that one. But the YEA training, all the other courses are online.
Could you speak to which ones you only have to take once and which ones you need to take?
Yes. So as of this moment, the only course that needs to be done annually is the local coordinator training on the US side. Those of you that have been involved in youth exchange for a while are familiar with that. We have to go through and do the Department of State local coordinator training each year. The host family orientation needs to be done each year for the host family. As a team member, we just want you to go through it once so you know what's in the orientation and you're able to answer questions that the host families might have going through the orientation process. The overall certification process, we require everyone to go through every 3 years. So every 3 years you have to go through and redo your application. And that's not going to change. The training itself, other than the local coordinator training, it's all one time right now. We're looking at possibly changing the timing on that to make some of these other training courses required more frequently, but jury's still out on that one. There was a question about how do people get the links to do the training. As the YEO for your club, you can send training links from the YEA system to anybody who is a volunteer or a host family at the club level. As new people come on, as new people apply to work at Youth Exchange, they're automatically sent to these links. Most of these course links have been automatically sent to people for the last 2 years. Some people choose to go through and do them, but as Michelle said, as of July 1st, we're going to require everybody to go through the training. So we will be going through, the administrative team here on the Youth Exchange side will be going through and making sure that we send the links out to everybody and that they have them. If you already have access to YEA at the club or district level, you can send the training links to yourself. What is the preferred method to hold the student money for the inbound? It's up to the club as to how you want to do that. We normally don't leave that money with the student. That money is taken and it's held by either the YEO or the counselor or the club. If you're opening up an account, you could put the money in there. But it's recommended that the YEO or the counselor hold the emergency fund for the student.
Perfect. Thank you. And remember to give it back.
And remember to give it back. It was already covered.
So the role of the counselor. The counselor has a very special role. It's actually quite a nice role to have with the youth exchange. The counselor gets to be the friend, and they get to be the advocate. They're the buffer between the club and the student. They liaison between the student, the Rotary Club, the host family, and the community. They play a crucial role in the success of the program. They are the student's primary Rotary contact. They ease his transition into the country and community through regular personal contact throughout the year. It's really important that as soon as you are assigned your student Marie from Belgium, you get her email. The first person that should send a note is that counselor. And hey, I'm your counselor. I want to get to know you, and they can work on building that relationship via email before the student even gets here. They should enjoy working with young people. I don't even know why we have to write that, but sometimes it has to be said. And they need to be prepared to advocate on behalf of that student. And sometimes it's tricky. Like I said earlier, we're all different. We all have personality, all different personalities. And it might be that the YEO and the student don't have the best relationship. And that counselor might need to have a difficult conversation with the YEO and say, hey, you need to lighten up here. Johnny's trying. The counselor should not be the best friend of the YEO. There needs to be some separation there so the student can trust that what they tell the counselor is for the counselor only, and they're not going to go and rat them out with the youth exchange officer. The counselor can help the student at choosing classes, making friends, and participating in activities. The counselor can help students adapt to the culture and language. They can get them involved with the community and the student's school to ensure the student is involved in positive activities and positive community life. They enforce the youth protection, the abuse and harassment prevention training provided at the inbound orientation, and they create a supportive atmosphere and where the student feels comfortable. And again, they serve an advocate as a student in any matter. They also have a key role in verifying that the exchanges are administered in compliance with the Youth Rotary International Policy. They can and should be asking their students about the relationship with their host families. Make sure that they're happy. Talk to the host families. The counselors must post a report every month. And that report is really important to us on the youth exchange team. And detail would be awesome. We often get, yeah, Johnny's doing great. Mostly that's what it all is. But we want to hear a story. What has the student done this month? What has been something that's brought the student joy this month? Do they have any struggles? Are they struggling with their math class? Are they having a hard time finding friends? We want to hear some details. We want to hear, that helps us get to know the kids before we see them at one of our group events. The counselor should be trained to respond to problems and concerns that might arise during the exchange, especially including allegations of abuse and harassment. And that, of course, is covered in the counselor training. The required courses for the counselor are the youth protection awareness, the local coordinator training, the counselor training, the culture shock and reverse culture shock, and the student overview.
Anybody that has any questions, please raise your hand and we can run through verbal questions at this point. So while we're waiting for others to raise their hands, there have been a couple of questions about the emergency fund. The emergency fund itself, the country officer sends a application package to the inbound student that tells them about the emergency fund In our exchange agreements with our partners, the emergency fund amount is written there. So they receive in writing the requirements for the emergency fund in at least 2 places. But it is the responsibility of the inbound counselor and the country coordinator to communicate with the student and let them know to bring the emergency fund. Are they all going to bring it? Definitely not.
No, I've never had an issue with that. I've always had the students bring it and never had to use it in my 20 years. I've never had to pull from it. No one's, I guess I've never had to use it. So
I have always had the host families hold the emergency fund, and it moves with the child from one host family to the other, and I monitor that. It's been very successful. I did not realize there was a requirement that it be done by the YEO.
Yeah, Jeffrey here. I'm in Squim now, but I was in Port Townsend, where they've had a very strong exchange program. And if you've got an Interact club in your high school, they can really be a great resource. And one thing the Port Townsend club always did was add an ice cream social as soon as the inbound came in, and the kids took it over and showed them around town, and it was really started them off.
oh, I love that idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Next is Eric Quinn.
Hi, everybody. I'm Eric Quinn. This is my first year as the Youth Exchange Officer for the Rotary Club of Lakewood, and obviously it's an interesting year to become, to be my first year.
Absolutely.
So the question I have pertains to schools. So I don't know if this goes beyond the scope of our discussion, but I'm having a hard time getting in touch with the schools because they are closed. So what are some best practices for contacting principals or school administration to even figure out if they are amenable to hosting a student when the schools are closed?
We've got 3 people that want to give you answers to that. We'll start with Kim, because I saw your hand first, then Carol, then Ann.
When schools and like I go to the youth in the Interact Club meetings, and it's very hard to get kids motivated, even when you had great kids the years before go. So we've usually had 1 or 2 from our school go over the last few years. But the Interact Club is very busy with all sorts of other projects. But in our school, there's music trips, there's Encounters with Canada, there's Quebec, BC Quebec Exchange. There's usually a Rotary trip with a build, which a lot of our kids got taken away by that. So I'm just saying that it's hard to kind of get the word out. And my biggest thing about this is exchange. It's only the kids with parents who've got enough money for the airfare can go. I would love to find a way for our exchange program to include kids who would never otherwise get the opportunity, and it would be truly a life-changing experience.
There are some clubs, Kim, that actually do that. They have scholarships for students who would not otherwise go. But Eric's question was more about how does he get in touch with somebody at the school to find out if we can actually do exchanges this year. So we'll try Carol next, and then we'll go to Ann.
Hi, Eric and my fellow friends on RI committees. I'm Carol. I'm the YEO of Rotary 8 in Tacoma. We're a large club. I've been on the RI committee for several years, but like Eric, this is my first year as YEO. So several years ago, I realized that our school that our students attend, Stadium High School, and our RI committee didn't have the best coordination and relationships. And I love to work across organizations when they don't seem to understand each other or get along. So I just volunteered to try and make that relationship better. So I called the principal, asked him if I could meet with him and anyone else who would be the link between that high school and our Rotary 8 Club. And then since then, we've written a protocol, exactly how students come in, how they get enrolled, because that was a difficult procedure. And about every 6 months, I email the vice principal, who was named as our contact, and ask her, Shannon, are there any changes, anything you want to do differently at the high school? We also have a link with the Tacoma Public Schools. So I'll write to Julio, any changes? Now with COVID, any changes? Or the question the district asked us was, would the school districts accept a student if they came just in January? So we have established that relationship. And I found that even during COVID, even with the schools being out, our contacts will answer their emails. So instead of trying to call, if you would just email the principal or whoever your contact is, I'm sure they'll respond. I mean, when I emailed Shannon, she was right back to me within half an hour.
I agree, Carol. That's excellent. The school might have a website, Eric. The school might have a website. You can check on that too.
Anne?
That's exactly what I was going to mention is with everything that's happening with COVID, I went online to the high school website and right there they have the principal, the vice principal, everyone and their email addresses. So I emailed the vice principal because that was the person I had called when I first became the YEO, which this year is my first year.
Wow.
Strange year.
Yeah. It gets better. It gets better.
So I just recently emailed him and I wasn't sure if anyone was going to get back to me. I emailed him, the head counselor, and as well the principal, and I heard back right away from the vice principal letting me know they've only just begun discussing what the start of the school year might look like, and they aren't sure they're going to be taking exchange students this year, this school.
So Eric, we've heard some good ideas. Another one that you might want to try, and I've done before, is used the same resource, the website at the school, to get the names of principal, vice principal, and counselors. Communicate out to those people. If you can't get through that way, you can try stalking them on the web based on their name and where they live and get contact information. And that does work.
But I think what Carol said is that, building relationships, that's why it's so important to build relationships with your school. And